So this lesson is on common factoring. What we did before was expanding, where we took expressions that were multiplied together with brackets and we multiplied them out and we ended up with expressions that were just added or subtracted together, which if you look here, that's what these are. So these are already expanded. When we factor, what we're going to do is we're going to work backwards. We're going to try to change this into two expressions multiplied, where we have brackets multiplied together, or two expressions multiplied in some way. So factoring is a little trickier because it's not as hard and fast as the expanding, where you always do the same thing and you always get the answer. Here we have to make some decisions. The first type of factoring that we're going to learn is called common factoring. Now, common factoring is the most, I call it the most basic, but it's also the most important, because every single time we sit down to do a factoring question, you should always consider common factoring. We're going to learn a whole bunch of techniques, and the other ones are more difficult and more complicated, but this is the one that if you forget to do this first, sometimes the other ones don't work. So we always have to start with common factoring. So what do I mean by that? What I mean is I'm going to look at my expression. In this case I have two terms, one subtraction sign dividing them up, and I'm going to look at both of them and I'm going to say, is there something that would divide evenly into both? So I always start with the numbers. I have a 2 and a 4, and I think, what would divide evenly into both 2 and 4? And very clearly 2. Say, okay, so I'm going to write equals, I'm going to change it into something that's equal, and I'm going to put my 2, because that one will divide evenly into both of them. Then I'm going to look at the x part. I'm going to say, okay, there's an x squared and an x to the power. Remember, that's to the power of 1. Now, I want it to divide evenly into both. I'm not going to say, well, x squared would divide into this nicely, but if I divide that by x squared, I'm going to get a negative exponent. So that's not going to work. So I'm looking for the highest power of x that I can possibly divide evenly into all of them, including the lowest one. So in this case, the x would divide into this. It would also divide into that. So I'm going to put the x down, meaning both of these terms will divide by 2x. Now once I've done, this is my common factor. Here, that's what I'm going to divide this expression by. So I'm going to put a bracket, and now I'm going to divide each term by that common factor, because I know it'll divide evenly. 2x squared divided by 2x. So 2 divided by 2, I get 1. I can put the 1, but I don't really need to. X squared divided by x to the 1. Remember, we subtract exponents, and we just get x. And we move on to the next one. Negative 4x divided by 2x. That'll be negative 2, negative 4 divided by 2, and then x divided by x. Now that divides out entirely, meaning they're the same. When you divide, you get a 1, so there's no x left. And I'm done. See how that's now factored? Two things multiplied together. And if you weren't sure if you were right, you could always multiply it back out, expand it, and you should get what you started with, 2x squared and negative 4x, which it is. Okay, so that was a very simple one. Let's try something a little harder, but still common factoring. This time we have 3 terms, but in order for it to be common factoring, it has to divide into all of the terms, all 3 of them. So I put my equal sign, and I'm going to start with the numbers 6, 9, and 18. Is there anything that divides into all 3 of them? And you think, okay, well, 6 would divide into 18, but it doesn't divide into 9, so that's not going to work. So what else could there be? Well, 3 would divide into 6, 9, oh yeah, 3. Then we have x cubed, x squared, and x. So the highest power of x that would divide into all of them would be just the x. And then I would put a bracket, and I'm going to divide each term by the 3x, the common factor. So 6x cubed divided by 3x is 2x squared. Negative 9x squared divided by 3x is negative 3x, plus 18x divided by 3x. X's are canceling, they're dividing out, and I'm left with the 6. And there I have finished factoring with common factor.